In this short video, I'm demonstrating how I cast bismuth metal and then subsequently turned it. Here I'm actually melting the bismuth, a previous failed attempt at the same piece that I'm going to turn, as well as some leftover bismuth metal. This is actually an alloy of bismuth, about 60% bismuth and 40% tin. I did some research on the internet and found that bismuth metal will not turn at all. A metal worker who is using slow speeds and very sharp steel tried turning bismuth straight and found that it was way too brittle and actually chunked out and left a bad surface. So I decided to give it a try with a bismuth alloy with the 40% tin. Here you can see I'm just finishing up pouring the molten bismuth alloy. That alloy melts at about 200 degrees, so it's well within reach of a propane torch. Here I'm starting to turn the bismuth. It's actually that 200 degrees does not harm at all the wood that I made a mold for turning the alloy. It also acts as a great chuck to hold the alloy as I'm turning it. And you can see I'm using a high-speed insert on a hollowing tool to turn the metal. However, I found that the high-speed steel scrapers work fine. You can actually use regular gouges and they work fine as well. I found the best control was with the carbide cutters, or the high-speed steel cutters. You can see there's no shavings really coming off. It's just like a fine dust, and that's the nature of the bismuth. I kind of learned my lesson on this after attempting this sculpture twice. I actually finished the piece and sent it off to the show that it was supposed to be going into, and in the process of just shipping to the show, it was well packed in double boxes, but the bismuth metal in the nature of the shape of the form that I turned it in just was too brittle to withstand even minor bumps in shipping, and it fractured twice on me. So I ended up leaving it out of the sculpture, but I thought it would be interesting for other people to see how I turned it. I was actually able to do the same thing with zinc metal. Zinc does not, it turns more like a metal and has more shavings that come off of it, and is much less brittle and withstood travel fine. It's been back and forth to St. Paul now 4 times, and it's not been damaged at all. The video is run at high speed, so you can just see kind of the process of turning rather than all the little details. It's really not meant to show that. It's really just to show that it can be done and how I did it. So just pouring it into the mold, the negative mold that I turned, still allowed the piece to be held very securely in the chuck and didn't move at all while I was turning it. Right now I just finished sanding the base, and I'm polishing it using some honing compound. So here I'm removing more of the wood that was holding the alloy in place and exposing more of the metal so I can start turning the shank of the piece. It's sort of like a, oh, it sort of looks like a golf tee. I added a customized tailstock that goes on my, well, it's like a one-way, but it's not a one-way tailstock. It's actually a robust tailstock, but it's similar and takes a 1-inch threaded uh, uh, female. So I just drill out a piece of wood and thread it and screw it onto the tailstock, and it acts as a really good support for the metal. Especially, I knew it was brittle, and so I wanted to, once I start making this thin section, I wanted to give it support with all that heavy metal on the tailstock side. The zinc metal is not quite, it actually also is within reach of a propane torch. Zinc melts at about 400 degrees, so a propane torch will melt it. I did find that when I poured it into the wooden mold, it did scorch the mold some. The bismuth didn't actually scorch the wood at all. So here I'm removing the tailstock and actually twisting the metal out of the rest of the wooden form, and you can see the result. Now I've reversed it. I'm holding it with a different 4-jaw chuck that fits that top part fairly closely. I protected the metals from getting any dents or scratches from the chuck with some foam tape, and support on the tailstock and with the hollowed portion of the one-way center, and it worked just fine. So here I'm showing you the finishing of the shape towards the narrow end of the form. And I'm using a variety of scrapers to get into that area right next to the tailstock. There I'm using actually a carbon steel skew that works fine as a scraper. I didn't finish the rest of the form. I didn't show sanding or polishing the shank. It ends rather abruptly here.